welcome back to the deep dive. We've got something, well, a little bit different today. Usually we're tearing apart business strategies or, looking at the latest tech trends. But today we are looking at the nature of reality itself. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean the actual nuts and bolts, or maybe I should say the waves and particles of existence.
No, we are getting very literal today. We are looking at a source video titled Unraveling the Universe's Secrets from the High Concept Deep Dives channel. And to be honest, it's a bit of a brain melter.
Brain melter is putting it lightly. I watched this and I had to just sit in silence for about 10 minutes afterwards just to recalibrate. The source material is essentially trying to mix what it calls a cosmic cocktail. It's taking hard, cold physics stuff like quantum mechanics and string theory and shaking it up with ancient spiritual philosophy.
It is a bold mix, and you're right, usually those two things sit at opposite ends of the library. But the central premise here is asking a question that really bridges that gap. Is the universe just a cold, dead stage where we accidentally walked on? Or is the stage itself alive? Is it reacting to us?
Which sounds fantastic, but I have to be the skeptic for a second here. Usually when I hear science meets spirituality, my alarm bells go off. It often ends up being, bad science used to justify vague feelings. But what I liked about this source is that it anchors everything in three very specific, very heavy concepts. It doesn't just wave its hands. It brings receipts.
It does. To get to the more, let's say, woo-woo stuff, you have to go through the physics lab first. We're going to break down three ingredients that the source outlines: the anthropic principle, the holographic principle, and biocentrism.
Three terms that could easily put people to sleep in a lecture hall. But the way they stack up here is just fascinating. It's like a mystery novel where the clues are the fundamental laws of nature. So let's start with that first ingredient, the anthropic principle. Give us the explain like I'm five, but also maybe the explain like I'm a skeptic version.
Okay. So at its core, the anthropic principle is the observation that the universe seems suspiciously well suited for us. When physicists measure the fundamental constants, the strength of gravity, the mass of an electron, they find that these numbers are dialed in with terrifying precision.
Terrifying precision. What do you mean by that?
I mean that the margin for error is effectively zero. If gravity were just a tiny, tiny fraction stronger, the universe would have collapsed back on itself moments after the Big Bang, a tiny bit weaker. Stars wouldn't have formed. Matter would just drift apart forever. And no stars means no fusion, which means no carbon, no oxygen, no carbon, no us.
The source uses a pretty memorable analogy for this. They call it the Armani suit theory.
Right. It's a great visual. Imagine you are walking through the absolute void of space, just a cold, random, chaotic emptiness. And you find a suit floating there, you put it on, and it's not just a close fit. It is tailored to your exact inseam, your shoulder width, your posture. It even lets you breathe. It fits perfectly.
And your logical conclusion isn't, wow, what a lucky accident. It's, someone made this for me, or at least this suit was waiting for me.
Exactly. You can't separate the suit from the wearer. The source asks, did the universe roll out the red carpet because we just happened to show up? Or was the party organized specifically for us?
I love that VIP guest framing. It asks, are we just lucky partygoers who stumbled into a great venue, or are we on the list? It even jokes, if we're VIPs, where is our complimentary champagne?
I think the champagne is the fact that we exist at all. But jokes aside, this principle implies something really profound. It suggests that our existence actually weighs on the universe.
But here's where I get skeptical, and I think a lot of listeners might too. Isn't this just what they call puddle thinking? The Douglas Adams quote, a puddle wakes up in a hole and says, wow, this hole fits me perfectly. It must have been made for me.
Right, ignoring the fact that the water just filled the shape that was already there. That's the classic counter-argument, the we are just adapted to the environment argument. But the source argues that the sheer number of coincidences required for life makes that puddle argument harder and harder to swallow. It's not just one hole fitting us, it's a billion different parameters lining up perfectly all at the same time.
Okay, so the odds are just too long for it to be a simple puddle.
Right. And the expert in the source pivots to the idea that the observer isn't passive. In standard classical physics, we stand behind a glass wall and watch the universe happen. We are separate. The anthropic principle, especially when you pair it with quantum mechanics, suggests that wall doesn't even exist. The universe is being defined by the fact that it's being observed.
So we aren't just flies on the wall. The wall was built so we can sit on it. Or maybe the wall is only there because we are looking at it.
Precisely. It moves us away from thinking of life as a cosmic coincidence. a mold that grew on a rock spinning around an average star, and toward the idea that the capacity to harbor life is a fundamental principle of the cosmos. It's baked right into the code.
Okay, speaking of code, that is the perfect segue to ingredient number 2. And this is where things get a little sci-fi. The holographic principle. Now, I've heard this term thrown around, usually followed by a reference to the Matrix. Is that what we're talking about? Are we living in a computer?
It's so easy to go straight to the Matrix, and the source definitely makes that connection because it's the easiest way to visualize it. But the actual physics behind this is even stranger than the movie. It comes from the study of black holes and information theory.
This is Stephen Hawking territory, isn't it?
Partially, yes. The paradox was this. When something falls into a black hole, is the information that describes that object lost forever? Because the laws of physics say information can't be destroyed. The holographic principle suggests that the information isn't lost inside, it's actually plastered onto the surface, the event horizon, as 2D data.
Okay, hold on. So the 3D object falls in, but its blueprint stays on the shell on the outside.
Exactly. Now, expand that concept to the entire universe. The theory proposes that our entire 3D reality, you, me, this microphone, the stars, all of it, is actually a projection of 2D information stored on the boundary of the cosmos.
Which sounds impossible. I mean, it feels solid. I can knock on this table. My coffee is hard. It all feels very 3D.
It feels solid, just like a hologram on a credit card looks like it has depth. But if you touch it, it's flat. The source describes the universe as a sophisticated illusion. We are navigating a 3D projection of a 2D information poster.
So naturally, the source asks, if we are holograms, should we start practicing our kung fu?
Well, who wouldn't want to download a helicopter pilot program straight into their brain? But the source takes a sharp left turn here. It moves away from the computer simulation vibe, which can feel a bit cold and robotic, and connects this to old spiritual wisdom.
This was the bridge I struggled with at first. How do you get from black hole surface data to spiritual enlightenment? That feels like a massive leap.
It relies on the nature of a hologram itself. This is the key. In a normal photograph, if you cut it in half, you lose half the picture. You tear off the face is gone.
Right.
But in a holographic film, if you cut it in half, the entire image is still visible in the smaller piece. It's just a little less sharp. If you cut it again, the whole image is still there.
Wait, really? So every tiny piece contains the whole picture?
Yes. The information is distributed non-locally. And the source says every sliver of the universe nestles the whole within itself. It links this to the concept of the soul's journey and even reincarnation.
Reincarnation. Okay, now we are definitely out of the physics lab.
Yeah.
How does the source even justify that connection?
Think about it as conservation of information. If the universe is fundamentally information, that 2D data, and not just hard matter, then that information doesn't necessarily get destroyed when the 3D projection ends.
So when the projection stops, the data itself remains.
Exactly. The source argues this mirrors the spiritual idea of the soul's journey. The soul projects at the journey, gains data, which we call wisdom or experience, and then feeds it back into the whole. We aren't separate from the universe. We contain the blueprint of the entire cosmos inside us.
That is heavy. It's the old poetic idea of the universe is in you, but backed up by, string theory and information mechanics.
Precisely. It suggests that mystics and quantum physicists are actually looking at the same mountain, just from different sides. One calls it Indra's net, or the Tao. The other calls it holographic projection. But they're describing a reality where the part contains the whole.
So let's recap the cocktail so far. We've got a tailored Armani suit, meaning the universe fits us perfectly. That's the anthropic principle. Then we've got the idea that we are living in a projection where every part contains the whole, the holographic. This sets the stage for the third ingredient, which seems to be the one that binds it all together, biocentrism.
This is the glue, and honestly, it's probably the most controversial piece of the puzzle.
The source calls it a jigsaw puzzle. It says you can't see the real picture without this piece. What is biocentrism proposing that is different from, standard biology? Because I remember biology class being about mitochondria and photosynthesis, not the fabric of reality.
Standard science has a very specific timeline, it says. The Big Bang happened, physics cooled down, stars formed, chemistry happened, and eventually, on some random rock, sludge turned into monkeys, and monkeys turned into us. Biology is the caboose on the train of reality. It's an after effect.
We are the accidental mold on the rock.
Biocentrism flips the train completely. It puts the caboose at the front. It suggests that consciousness is the fundamental driver. It proposes that the universe doesn't exist in a meaningful way without a conscious observer to collapse the probabilities into reality.
This goes back to the famous double slit experiment, doesn't it? The idea that particles act like waves. They're just potentials until we look at them and then they snap into position.
Exactly. The source leans heavily on that implication. It says the universe isn't a passive thing sitting there waiting to be discovered. It's an active process that requires us. The universe is a construct of the conscious mind.
That is a huge claim. It borders on solipsism. The idea that nothing exists but my own mind.
It skirts the edge of it, but instead of only my mind exists, it's more like consciousness is the canvas. Without the canvas, there's no painting. The source says the universe isn't a passive observer, but an active participant. Wait, actually, let's correct that. We aren't passive observers.
We are the active participants. The universe is the output.
Yes. This is the synthesis. The anthropic principle says the conditions are set for us. The holographic principle says the reality is a projection of information. And biocentrism says we are the ones running the projector.
That's the aha moment. It stops being three separate theories and becomes one coherent, albeit wild, worldview. Science and spirituality aren't fighting. They are intertwined strands of a single grand tapestry.
And just think about the emotional shift that causes. It removes that lucky fluke anxiety. If you accept this cocktail, you aren't an accident. You are a necessary fundamental building block of cosmic design. You are as essential to the universe as gravity or light.
Okay, I want to pause here, because this is usually where these conversations stay in the clouds. It's fun to think about at 2 in the morning with your friends, but the source actually pivots to the so what part pretty hard. It wants us to do something with this information.
It does. It moves from theory to responsibility. And honestly, it's a bit of a heavy burden.
It uses the term co-creators.
Right. If the universe is a lively, interconnected network of information, and you are a node processing that information, then you aren't a bystander. You're not a mere spectator meandering through stars.
Engaged players in the cosmic dance. I like that. It sounds much better than commuter stuck in traffic.
It does, but it means practically that your internal state impacts external reality. The source explains that every thought, every action, every experience adds another layer to this unfolding universe.
The cosmos isn't some distant entity. It is us, and we are it.
Think about the holographic idea again. If the whole is contained in the part, then what happens in the part in you echoes through the whole. It's the butterfly effect, but for consciousness.
So if I'm walking around angry, resentful, and chaotic,
you are contributing chaos to the cosmic web. You are writing chaos code into the program. The source draws a parallel here to Buddhist interconnectedness and the Hindu concept of Brahman. We are all threads in the same web. If you pull on your thread, the whole web vibrates.
that is a lot of pressure. It's one thing to say, be nice because it's polite. It's another thing to say, be nice because you are glitching the hologram of the universe.
It is terrifying, but it's also empowering. It suggests that the chaos we see in the world war, environmental destruction, social unrest, is a reflection of the chaos in our collective consciousness. We created the storm.
The mirror works both ways.
Exactly. But the flip side is the hope. If we can shift our consciousness, if we can engage in what the Source calls conscious collaboration, we can shift the reality of the cosmos.
The Source calls this environmentalism for the soul.
I love that phrase. We recycle plastic to save the physical environment. We need to recycle our thoughts to save the informational environment.
It dares us to shoulder the responsibility for the world we create. It really stops you from blaming the system or fate. In this view, we are the system.
And we are constantly molding it. We aren't just living in the world, we are of the world. We are the world experiencing itself.
So we've gone from finding an Armani suit in space,
Which was stylish.
to realizing we're living in a matrix,
Which was disorienting.
to landing on this idea that we are holding the paintbrush. But the Source leaves us with some really provocative questions at the end. These weren't just rhetorical. They felt like challenges for the next century of human evolution.
They really pushed the envelope. The Source asks, can we tap into the universe's latent potential? And even more intriguingly, could we learn to consciously shape reality to traverse the cosmos, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually?
That was the one that stopped me. Traversing the cosmos mentally. It sounds like something from a sci-fi novel.
It sounds like the plot of Dune or Star Wars, doesn't it? But if you follow the logic, if space and time are projections of consciousness, which is what biocentrism suggests, then maybe the best way to travel isn't a rocket.
Right. If distance is just an illusion of the hologram, maybe you don't need to travel through the distance, you just need to change the information.
Exactly. It implies that the next frontier isn't external. It's not Mars colonies or warp drives. The next frontier is internal. Understanding the mind that creates the space in the first place.
It's a wild thought. We spend billions building telescopes to look out, but maybe we need to be looking in with the same intensity.
That's the core message. Conscious collaboration isn't just about fixing the world out there. It's about the transformation within ourselves, expanding our consciousness to match the grand cosmic design.
So, if the universe is a grand, beautiful tapestry, we need to make sure our thread is colorful and strong.
We need to step up to the level of the universe we inhabit. We need to realize that the universe isn't happening to us. It's happening through us.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to look at the night sky a little differently tonight, and I'm definitely going to be more careful about what I'm thinking during my commute tomorrow. I don't want to be the reason the cosmic web vibrates the wrong way.
It certainly makes you pay attention to your own signal.
That's it for this deep dive. Whether you're a VIP guest in a cosmic Armani suit or a hologram practicing Kung Fu, remember, you're part of the web. Pull the thread gently. Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep looking up and looking in.